Welcome back. I am so pleased to have with us one of our regulars here at Securing America, a man who has in fact devoted his life to doing just that. His name is Chris Farrell. He is these days the Director of Investigations and Research at a truly invaluable organization, Judicial Watch. It is a government watchdog and, in fact, has been doing the job of, the Congress and independent councils and any number of others in trying to monitor, assess, and expose criminal wrongdoing, in most cases, involving efforts to remove Donald Trump from office. Chris brings to this important work a background in counterintelligence, and we're going to be drawing on both his present incarnation and his previous life to explore what we're facing at the moment. Chris, we're delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us 2 segments of your time, no less.
Great to be with you, Frank. Thank you.
So, Chris, again, you have been, I think, at the absolute forefront of exposing what's now increasingly come to be called the coup against Donald Trump. You've been watching it, you've been documenting it, you've been, as I say, exposing it inexorably. Talk a little bit about how what led up to the present moment has given rise to this very aggressive new phase of the coup against the Trump administration and president.
Well, you have to really go back to President, or then candidate Trump, and his wife Melania coming down the escalator at Trump Tower. That's really the kickoff point. There were people at that point within the government. You know, there's a lot of folks who said there was no way in hell that Trump would ever become president. There's any number of different Hollywood stars, and for that matter, President Obama at the time, very snarkily doing sort of a mic drop comment about, that Trump will never be president. Well, surprise, surprise, he is. And
but despite their best efforts to make it not the case, which is the point.
Exactly. And so once his campaign started to get any kind of traction, there were elements within the professional sort of political class in Washington, D.C., who decided that they were going to obstruct, run interference, or in some way disrupt the candidacy. Then once he was elected, the transition, and then the Trump presidency itself. And it was at the highest levels of government, right? So this is John Brennan, James Comey, that cast of characters. And there's actually a litany of about 24 to 36 names of people that were operating in that field using the full force and weight of both law enforcement and intelligence to go after Trump and the circle of people around him. And
let me just interrupt you on that point, because this is so gobsmacking, I guess is the word for it. The institutions of government, not just individuals who led them, but they actually were able to weaponize these institutions, the intelligence community, the FBI, various other Department of Justice individuals as well, for the purpose of interfering in a presidential election campaign. Have I got that right?
Correct. And all the safeguards and the double checks and the sort of justifications and permissions, there's a lot of process in getting a warrant or doing a wiretap or running an undercover operation. I mean, normally, whether it's intelligence or law enforcement, there's a process and a system, and there's double checks, and there's justifications, and there's legal reviews, and there's an authentication process. And even once you're running it, there's sort of a internal double check where people are reading the reports and asking tough questions to make sure that the investigation's being done properly and not just lawfully, but that it's useful, that it's a productive investigation. And in all of those instances, with regard to Trump, they threw the rule book out. None of the regular processes were followed. None.
And here's the point, bringing us up to the moment. It certainly seems as though there's a lot of this kind of thing going on at the moment, perhaps at the federal level, certainly at the state level. Arguably, the absence of federal corrective action is contributing to what's been happening at the state level. But talk a little bit about what you're seeing now, bringing to bear your gimlet investigator's eye, Chris Farrell.
So, I mean, the most disappointing and frustrating thing is the the lack of action on the parts of both Attorney General Barr and Mr. Durham, the U.S. Attorney from Connecticut, who was charged with conducting a separate inquiry into this whole Russia hoax Obamagate issue. And, the only sort of scalp they have so far is some third string attorney out of the Justice Department named Kleinsmith, who phonied up a document to get a warrant against Carter Page. That's pretty slim pickings. And there's been recent reporting about how basically the whole thing has fallen apart and Durham isn't ready to do anything. I can assure you, based on my own firsthand experience, having done operations and investigations that are similar to this, but more in the realm of foreign counterintelligence, that if you want to go after somebody and get an indictment, just based on the publicly available information we have right now, it could be done. So it's really a question of political will. And for whatever reason, Mr. Barr, Mr. Durham, have not exercised their discretion to go after characters who are clearly bad actors, that there's already sufficient open material on the record. James Comey went before the Senate Intelligence Committee and admitted that he had written notes about a meeting with the President of the United States and then handed them off to his buddy at Columbia University to leak them to the press. That's a crime. It's not a big leap to try to explain that.
There seems so much of that involved here. And I guess your point, Chris, is that had this kind of prosecution taken place before the election, it may have even further strengthened the case for Donald Trump. And in its absence, we've seen an awful lot of further shenanigans that seem aimed primarily at accomplishing the goal of the coup that has failed to this point, but that would deny him the second term that he seemed otherwise set on. Chris, we have to take a short break. When we come back, I do want to ask you about how this is translated into seemingly fraudulent activities that have affected the outcome, and whether Judicial Watch will be breaking some news on that front, and also the counterintelligence problem that we may have with a Biden presidency, given Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's connections to China. All of that and more with Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch, straight ahead.